Hello, children. Today we are continuing with the same chapter, that is the air around us. Today we'll be dealing with the topic, that is, we'll deal with an experiment which shows that oxygen supports burning. In my last class already, when I was discussing about the components of air, that time we had discussed about oxygen as a one of the major components after nitrogen in amount wise. When you had studied about the amount of nitrogen, it was around 77.78% or round about 78%, and oxygen is round about 21%. Now, and then we had told already that oxygen supports burning. Here we can show it by an experiment. We take a trough and place a jar stand in it and place a candle on the gas jar stand. Now half the trough is filled up with the water and some caustic soda solution is added along with a few drops of ink. This is how the experimental setup was done. So what we had done, we had taken a trough, then we had placed a jar stand in it, then we had placed a candle, then we had taken some water and caustic soda we had added and along with the drop of ink. Then in the next step, we are lighting a candle with the matchstick covered. After a short time, the candle stops burning and water rises up in the jar to a certain level. This is what we had seen. This comes under the observation. The candle stops burning. Why? Because all the oxygen of the air present in the gas jar is used up. So initially, why the candle burnt? Because the little bit amount of oxygen was present there, and oxygen supports combustion or supports burning. So the candle initially had burnt, and while burning, it had taken the oxygen, and now the entire oxygen has been used up. So the candle, now there is no oxygen which can support the burning, and as a result of which it extinguished. So now we can say that oxygen supports combustion. Now, as oxygen is used up, carbon dioxide is formed. Now, this carbon dioxide is absorbed by caustic soda solution. If you can remember, when we had started the experiment, we had taken caustic soda. Why? Because of this reason, that is, when the oxygen will be used up by the candle by the combustion process or burning process, and in that time carbon dioxide will be produced. That carbon dioxide will be absorbed by the caustic soda solution, and then the water will rise up in the gas jar to fill its vacuum. This is another a very important concept, that is, no place can remain vacuum. Um, so, as the oxygen is used up, it has produced carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide has been absorbed by caustic soda. So, there creates a vacuum. That vacuum is been filled up by the water, which are uh, the water which is outside the trough, it has risen up in the gas jar and fills the vacuum. So this is the experiment by which we can say oxygen supports burning. Now, we had last class discussed about the components of air. Now we will discuss the components of air individually. How are they beneficial? How are they used up? First one is the nitrogen. So what is nitrogen? The 77.17 or around 78% of the gas we had seen, this is nitrogen. Now what are its property? The first one, it is colorless, it is tasteless, it is odorless, and it is slightly soluble in water. Not essential for breathing. So it is not fully soluble and it is not essential for breathing. Otherwise, it would have been much more easier, because in air maximum percentages of nitrogen. So if their nitrogen remains in the air and it supports the breathing, then the breathing process would have been much more easier. Next is, it neither burns nor supports combustion. So it is very timid, very unreactive. That means it doesn't have that reaction power. All the living things need nitrogen compounds for their growth. So all the living things, they need nitrogen for their growth. Okay, because it is the main constituents of protein, and we know that protein supports the body to grow. So nitrogen helps the body to grow, and also needed by the plants to make protein. That is why it is said that na, you should eat pulses, dal, rajma, soybean, because they directly consume nitrogen, and nitrogen is essential for protein. So these substances, these plants, they give a lot of protein, and our protein deficiency is being made up by these amount, these gas, these pulses, these plants. Next one is the carbon dioxide. So what is its type? It is colorless, odorless, slightly sour taste. And they are moderately soluble in water. That means they are not completely, they are not highly soluble, they are moderately soluble. And this is also the same, they neither burn nor supports. Okay, but the one thing which is different from the nitrogen is that they are help to extinguish the burning fire. So you can see when there is fire, like the fire, I mean the liquid nitrogen, if you sorry, the carbon dioxide, if you spray there, it will help to extinguish the fire. Okay, so it is, nitrogen is completely unreactive, but it, this carbon dioxide, it extinguishes the burning fire. Green plants need carbon dioxide. Why? All of you know carbon dioxide is so very essential for the green plants, because they produce food, and they produce food by the process called photosynthesis, and that food is eaten by the every individual of the environment, starting from a smaller organism to human being. So the carbon dioxide is very much essential in this way. So we can say, without carbon dioxide, there would have been no life on earth. Why? Because carbon dioxide is the main constituent, is the main raw material by which the food is produced in the atmosphere. And if there is no food, no food is prepared, obviously what will we eat? So there will be no life on earth. Next one is the water vapor. Now air also contain water vapor. When air comes in contact with the cool surface, the water vapor present condenses to form tiny droplets of liquid water on the cold surface. Okay, so the presence of water vapor in the atmosphere is important for running the water cycle. What we had learnt about the water cycle, to running the water cycle, or to run the water cycle, the water vapor is very important. And also they rises high in the sky along with the hot air in the sky. In the upper sky they get cold, condenses, and form the cloud and ultimately the rain. So you can see the entire water cycle, that is the evaporation of the water vapor to vapor, then that vapor form water droplets, these water droplets form the cloud, then form the cloud, they come down as a rain. So to carry out these processes in a cyclical manner, water vapor is very important. Next is the oxygen. This is the most known and reactive gas. It is although colorless, tasteless, odorless, but they are soluble in water. This gas is highly soluble in water, and the practical utility what we get is the life of aquatic organism. So they take up the aquatic oxygen for breathing, and that is only possible because the oxygen is dissolved or soluble in the water, and it is so essential for breathing or respiration. And but the oxygen gas does not burn itself, but it supports the combustion. Okay, this oxygen is important for two things. One we had already discussed, that is necessary for burning, because we had seen earlier in the experiment that when up to the point when the oxygen was present, burning was candle was burning. The moment oxygen started depleting, or oxygen has uh, depleted from that area, that fire or the candle extinguishes. So this is one, that is oxygen supports burning. And the second thing, very important, is necessary for living, because it helps for, it is the only gas which gives the breathing. So the terrestrial plants and animals, they require the breathing gas from the air we inhale, and aquatic life take the oxygen for breathing from the dissolve which are dissolved in water. And so a patient like who's having breathing difficulties, or the mountain climber, they having, or a person who dives into the deep sea, in these cases, what are the cases, if the person suffering from oxygen difficulty, or that means if he or she is a patient, he or she is a climber or the mountaineer which goes higher altitude, and if it is a diver. So in these three cases we need to have the special oxygen cylinder, and which to get the oxygen artificially, because naturally they cannot take the oxygen. And also the mountaineers, they carry the oxygen cylinder for purpose, because they go to the higher altitude, and higher altitude means the lower oxygen concentration. So up to this, by this today's class or today's discussion, we had learned how oxygen is important for burning, and the accepting burning, how it is important for breathing and respiration. And also we had learned about the other gases which are components of atmosphere, or components of the atmospheric gases or the air. Next class we will continue with the further discussion of the chapter. All of you remain safe. Try to be at home. Have a nice day.